The family you love so much? They're the reason I had nothing. My husband's voice was ice cold as he said those words on our 5th wedding anniversary. The diamond necklace he'd just given me feeling like a weight around my neck. I met Ethan when we were 19, both freshmen in college, both kids who'd grown up without much. I'd been adopted at 2 years old by the most loving parents in the world, Mark and Linda, who gave me everything I ever wanted, even when money was tight. Ethan told me his parents had died in a house fire when he was 5, that he'd bounced from foster home to foster home his entire life, that he'd never known what a real family was. I fell in love with him fast. He was kind, gentle, he loved my parents like they were his own. He cried when they walked me down the aisle. For 5 years, we had the perfect marriage. Until 2 months ago, when I noticed he was sending $2,000 every month to a woman I'd never heard of, named Margaret Hale. I thought he was cheating. I tracked the address, drove 2 hours to a small apartment in the city, and knocked on the door. An older woman answered, and when I showed her a picture of Ethan, she started crying. She told me she was Ethan's birth mother, that she was alive, that his father had left when he was a baby, and that she'd had to give him up for adoption when he was 5 because she couldn't afford to feed him. But that's not what broke me. She pulled out a photo of the couple that had adopted Ethan right after she gave him up, Mark and Linda. My parents. My blood ran cold. I drove home in a daze, digging through every box in our attic, every file in our home office until I found it. A stack of adoption papers, dated 20 years before I was born, for a baby boy named Ethan James Carter, adopted by Mark and Linda Carter. My parents had adopted Ethan when he was a baby, then 2 years later, they'd gotten pregnant with a baby of their own. They didn't want 2 kids. They'd given Ethan back to the system, lied to him about his parents dying, erased him from their lives entirely, then adopted me 2 years later to replace him. That's why he'd found me. That's why he'd married me. He wasn't in love with me. He was here for revenge. I listened to the voice memos I found on his laptop that night, my hands shaking so hard I could barely hold the computer. He'd spent 10 years tracking my parents down, tracking me down, plotting to take everything from them. He'd already drained the retirement fund my parents had spent 30 years building, transferred it to an offshore account in his name. He'd convinced my dad to sign over the deed to their family home, telling him it was to protect it from taxes, and put it in his own name. His endgame? Make my parents lose everything they'd ever built, make them watch as the daughter they loved more than anything turned her back on them, then leave me with nothing, just like they'd left him. I didn't even have time to process it before he walked through the front door, that soft smile on his face, holding a bottle of my favorite wine. He knew I'd found out. Now I'm sitting across from him at the dining room table, the evidence spread out in front of me, my parents on speed dial. I don't know if I can ever forgive him for lying to me for 7 years. But I also don't know if I can ever forgive my parents for destroying his life, for making me the replacement for the son they threw away. He just poured me a glass of wine and said, "You have a choice. Join me and take them down for what they did. Or stand with them and lose everything." I have 10 seconds to answer, and I don't know which way I'm going to turn.